Two colleagues leave the same office building on the same Friday evening. They work on the same floor. They have been at the company for roughly the same number of years. Their salaries are close enough that if you rounded both numbers to the nearest 10,000, you would call them identical. They take the same elevator down, they walk out the same door, and then their Friday evenings diverge in ways that tell two completely different financial stories. The first colleague gets into a leased SUV with a $620 monthly payment. She is heading home to a 3-bedroom apartment she shares with one other person. The third bedroom is full of exercise equipment, a projector she uses maybe twice a year, and 4 boxes of kitchen appliances she moved from her last place and never unpacked. Her fridge has $340 worth of groceries in it, half of which will expire before she gets to them. Her phone is the model that came out 8 months ago. She upgraded from a phone that was working perfectly because the camera on the new one was marginally better. She will check her bank account tonight, see the number, feel a familiar tightening in her chest, and tell herself she will get serious about saving next month. The second colleague gets into a car he bought 4 years ago and owns outright. He is heading home to a 1-bedroom apartment that costs $200 less per month than his colleague's 3-bedroom. His kitchen has 11 items in it, and he has used every single one of them this week. His closet has clothes he actually wears. His phone is 2 models old and works exactly as well as the day he bought it. When he checks his bank account tonight, he will feel nothing dramatic, just the quiet, ordinary satisfaction of a number that is slightly larger than it was last Friday. He has 9 months of living expenses saved. He invests 18% of every paycheck without thinking about it. Same company, same salary range, same city. One of them is financially free in every way that matters. One of them is financially trapped in every way she cannot quite name. My name is Zick, and what separates those two colleagues is not income, not intelligence, not luck, and not some dramatic financial event that changed everything. It is a set of rules, specific, learnable, immediately applicable rules about the relationship between what you own and what you keep. Today, I am going to give you those rules, all of them, with the numbers attached. Before the rules, one concept that reframes everything that follows. Every possession you own has 2 price tags. The first is the one you see the number on the receipt, the sticker price, the monthly payment the salesperson quotes while you are still warm from the excitement of wanting the thing. That number is real. It is also the smaller of the 2 costs in almost every case. The second price tag is invisible and ongoing. It is the compounding monthly total of every resource the possession consumes simply by existing in your life. Space, which in most urban markets costs $30 to $50 per square foot annually in implicit rent. Maintenance. The industry standard for annual upkeep on most major possessions runs between 5% and 15% of the item's purchase value. Mental attention every item you own occupies a slice of cognitive real estate, requiring to be cleaned, organized, worried about, insured, and eventually disposed of. Environmental psychology research consistently shows that visual clutter elevates cortisol, the stress hormone, and reduces the brain's capacity for focused thinking. Your possessions are not just taking up physical space, they are taking up mental space. And then there is the cost that most people never calculate at all: opportunity cost. Every dollar tied up in a possession is a dollar not compounding in an investment account. $12,000 worth of sporting equipment purchased across 5 years of optimistic enthusiasm, sitting largely unused in a garage, is not just $12,000 of spent money. It is $12,000 that would have become approximately $33,000 over 15 years at a 7% average annual return. You did not buy equipment, you bought equipment instead of $33,000. When you add all 4 components of the second price tag together, many possessions cost more to own over time than they cost to purchase. The receipt is the entry fee. The ongoing costs continue for as long as the item exists in your life. This is the insight minimalists operate from, not because they dislike nice things, but because they have done the math and decided that most things are not worth what they actually cost. Rule 1: calculate cost per use before every purchase. Before buying anything, estimate how many times you will realistically use it in the next 12 months. Not how many times you hope to use it, not how many times you would use it in an ideal version of your life. How many times will you actually practically use it given your real schedule and real habits? Divide the total cost by that number. That is your cost per use. A $180 jacket worn 4 times costs $45 per wear. A $360 jacket worn 180 times costs $2 per wear. The expensive jacket is not an expensive purchase. The cheap one is. Cost per use is the only honest measure of value that exists in personal finance. Everything else is marketing. This calculation is ruthless with impulse purchases. That $280 air fryer you will use 3 times in year 1 costs $93 per use. That is an extraordinary price to accomplish something your existing oven already does adequately. Meanwhile, a $45 cast iron pan used 4 nights per week costs less than 25 cents per use within the first month. It becomes more valuable the more time passes. The calculation also confirms which purchases are genuinely worth it. A $1,800 mattress slept on every night for 10 years costs under 50 cents per use, and it is actively affecting your energy, your health, and your cognitive function every single day. Run this number before every purchase above $50. Most impulse desires will not survive contact with the actual arithmetic. Rule 2: apply the replacement test to everything you currently own. Walk through your living space and look at each item. Ask one honest question. If this disappeared today, would you spend money to replace it? It would not be annoying if it were gone. Do you vaguely like having it around? Would you open your wallet and go buy another one? Would you replace the rice cooker you use twice a year when a pot does the same job? Would you replace the 4 decorative items on a shelf you have not looked at intentionally in 6 months? Would you replace the clothes in the back of your closet that have not been worn since the year you bought them? For most items, honest examination produces a clear answer: no. They exist through inertia, impulse purchases that stuck around, obligatory gifts that felt wrong to discard, remnants of phases and hobbies and versions of yourself that have long since moved on. These items have negative value. They cost you space, attention, and maintenance without returning anything meaningful to your daily life. The removal process feels uncomfortable for approximately 3 days. After that, it feels like something that is genuinely difficult to describe to someone who has not experienced it, a kind of lightness. Rooms feel larger, decisions feel simpler, the things that remain have a clarity they could not have when surrounded by everything that did not belong. Rule 3: never upgrade something that functions. There is a pattern that quietly destroys the finances of people who earn good incomes and cannot figure out where the money goes. They replace perfectly working things because newer versions exist. The phone that calls, messages, and runs every application they use gets replaced because the new model photographs marginally better in low light. The car that starts reliably, drives safely, and requires only routine maintenance gets traded for something with updated styling. The television that produces a clear picture gets replaced because a thinner version exists. Each individual upgrade feels like a reasonable decision. Cumulatively, they represent an extraordinary amount of wealth destruction. The average household that upgrades on cultural schedule, replacing phones every 2 to 3 years, vehicles every 4 to 5 years, electronics. Whenever a new generation releases, spends somewhere between $180,000 and $250,000 more across a working lifetime than the household that replaces things only when they genuinely fail to function. $200,000 invested at 7% over 25 years is $1,085,000. That is the retirement wealth contained in the decision to define functional precisely and hold that definition against the pressure of every advertisement, every product launch, every neighbor's new purchase that makes your working version feel suddenly insufficient. Functional means Does this item perform the task it exists to perform? If yes, it stays. Boredom is not failure. The existence of a newer model is not a failure. The neighbor buying something shinier is not a failure. Actual inability to perform the required function, that is failure. Everything else is a problem marketing invented to sell you a solution you do not need. Rule 4. Engineer your environment for saving, not spending. Human behavior reliably follows the path of least resistance. This is not a character weakness, it is neuroscience. The brain conserves energy by defaulting to whatever requires the least friction. If spending is frictionless and saving requires effort, you will spend. Not because you lack discipline, but because that is how the brain is designed to operate. Minimalists do not fight this tendency, they use it. Spending friction looks like removing saved payment information from every retail website, so each purchase requires manually entering card details. Deleting shopping applications from your phone, so browsing requires deliberate effort. Unsubscribing from every promotional email so desired is not manufactured by Inbox. Applying a 72-hour waiting period, not 24 hours, because 72 hours survives a weekend to every non-essential purchase above $40. Saving ease looks like automatic transfers to investment accounts scheduled for the same day income arrives before the money exists in a spendable account. Keeping a deliberately modest amount in checking, so large, spontaneous purchases require conscious transfer. Treating the investment contribution not as optional savings, but as a fixed monthly obligation identical in status to rent. The 72-hour rule alone produces measurable results. Studies on consumer impulse behavior consistently show that approximately 70% of purchase desires fade completely within 3 days, if not immediately acted upon. The craving passes on its own. The only thing preventing it from passing was the frictionless environment that allowed immediate action before the desire had time to dissolve. If this is shifting how you think about the things you own and the things you want, take 2 seconds and hit the like button. It genuinely helps the channel, and I appreciate every single one. Rule 5. Count your possessions regularly. This sounds extreme until you do it once. Pick one category: clothing, kitchen items, books, anything that tends to quietly accumulate, and count every item in that category. Write the number down. Most people guess significantly low. The average person estimates they own 20 to 25 items of clothing and discovers they own 55 to 80. Most kitchens contain twice the tools that are used in any given week. Most bookshelves hold more books that will never be reread than books that will. The count forces the accumulation into visible form, and visible form changes behavior in ways that abstract awareness does not. Once you know you own 63 shirts, buying a 64th feels different. You are not adding a shirt. You are expanding a collection to 64 items with the full awareness of what 63 already looks like. The absurdity becomes hard to ignore. Set thresholds by category. A maximum number that the category cannot exceed. A one-in, one-out rule that requires removing something existing before adding anything new. These constraints do not require willpower at the moment of temptation. They require one decision, made once, that governs all subsequent decisions automatically. The most sustainable financial rules are the ones that eliminate repeated decision-making from high-friction moments. Rule 6. Rent or borrow before you commit to ownership. Most purchases follow a predictable arc. Intense early use driven by novelty, gradual decline as the novelty fades. Near complete disuse within 6 to 18 months as the item joins the collection of things owned but rarely touched. Minimalists interrupt this arc before the purchase rather than after. Want to try hiking seriously? Rent gear for 4 trips before buying anything. Want to explore furniture making? Use a shared workshop before purchasing a single tool. Want to get into photography? Rent a camera for 2 weekends before spending $800 on equipment. This approach does 2 things simultaneously. First, it tests whether the enthusiasm is genuine or a phase, and most enthusiasm is a phase, better discovered while renting than after buying. Second, it teaches you exactly what you need before you buy it, so when you do purchase, You buy precisely the right things rather than guessing and buying everything. The garages and storage units of the developed world are lined with the physical evidence of phases people were certain would last forever. Ski equipment from winters that happened twice, musical instruments from bands that played 3 shows, photography gear from a serious hobby that lasted 1 enthusiastic month. Minimalists are not less curious or less enthusiastic than other people. They are simply more honest about testing whether enthusiasm survives contact with reality before committing capital to it. Rule 7. Calculate ecosystem cost, not item cost. Every significant purchase generates a category of supporting expenses that did not exist before the purchase. The item is never the full cost. The ecosystem surrounding it is: a boat costs its purchase price plus storage, insurance, registration, winterization, cleaning supplies, safety equipment, maintenance reserves, and the vehicle modification or trailer required to transport it. A standard estimate for annual boat ownership costs runs approximately 10% of the boat's value per year. A $35,000 boat costs $3,500 per year to own before it touches water once. Over 10 years, that is $35,000 in maintenance costs on top of the $35,000 purchase price. You did not buy a $35,000 asset, you bought a $70,000 decade. Before any major purchase, list every category of expense that purchase creates or increases. Estimate the monthly total, multiply by the expected ownership period. That final number is the true cost. Compare it against the true benefit, not the imagined best case benefit, but the realistic average benefit based on how you actually use things rather than how you intend to. That comparison is the only honest basis for a major financial decision. The ecosystem calculation also works powerfully in reverse. Eliminating one major possession frequently eliminates an entire category of ongoing expenses simultaneously. The decision to sell the boat does not just return the boat's market value. It eliminates storage fees, insurance premiums, registration costs, maintenance bills, and the mental overhead of managing all of the above permanently for every year that follows. Rule 8. Define enough before income makes it uncomfortable to do so. The trap that catches high earners consistently is the absence of a finish line. Income rises, lifestyle expands to absorb it. The expanded lifestyle becomes the new baseline. The new baseline requires maintaining income at the new level. Another increase arrives. Lifestyle expands again. The finish line keeps moving. This is why people earning $280,000 per year can feel exactly as financially anxious as people earning $70,000. Their spending expanded in precise synchronization with their earnings. The gap between income and expenditure, the only gap that produces actual financial security, never widened because every increase in one was met with an equal increase in the other. The people who escape this cycle define enough in advance before the income arrives that makes exceeding the definition feel justified. They decide what home is genuinely sufficient before income growth makes a larger one feel earned. They decide what vehicle actually meets their transportation needs before a raise makes an upgrade feel affordable. They draw the line while drawing it still requires something from them, and then they hold it as income grows past it, directing every dollar of the gap toward investment rather than lifestyle expansion. The person who defines enough at $58,000 of annual spending and earns $130,000 has $72,000 per year building wealth. At 7% average annual return over 20 years, that $72,000 annual surplus produces approximately $3,100,000. The person earning the same $130,000 who redefined enough upward with every raise may have almost nothing, same income, completely different financial life. The only variable is a line drawn and held. Here is your implementation sequence. Not someday, this week. Today, pick one category of possessions and count everything in it. Write the number down and set a maximum threshold. That threshold becomes the permanent ceiling for that category going forward. This week, pull up 3 months of bank statements and identify every recurring charge. Cancel every subscription that would not survive a cost per use calculation services you use less than weekly, memberships you forgot you had, premium tiers of things. The free version would serve equally well. Most households find $150 to $350 in monthly charges that we're leaving silently. This month, apply the 72-hour rule to every non-essential purchase above $40. Note how many desires survive 72 hours and how many dissolve on their own. The data will show you more about your spending patterns than any budget analysis ever has. This quarter, calculate your current monthly gap income minus expenses and decide on a specific percentage increase to your savings or investment rate. Automate it before the quarter ends. Automation is not optional. Manual saving requires repeated decisions under repeated pressure. Automated saving requires one decision made once. This year, write down what enough looks like across your 3 largest spending categories: housing, transportation, clothing. What level of each is genuinely sufficient for the life you are actually living, not the aspirational version, the real one? Those definitions become the ceiling that protects your gap from lifestyle expansion as income grows. Those 2 colleagues left the same building on the same Friday evening. One of them opened her banking app that night and felt the familiar tightening. The other opened his and felt nothing dramatic, just the ordinary quiet of a number, doing what numbers do when the system protecting them is working correctly. 5 years from now, those 2 people will inhabit financial realities that look nothing alike. Not because of anything that happened to them, because of the specific decisions one of them made about what things are actually worth owning, what enough actually looks like, and what the money left over after those decisions is actually capable of becoming. The rules in this conversation are not about living with less. They are about understanding what you are actually trading when you spend and deciding with clear eyes whether the trade is worth making. Some trades are, most, examined honestly, are not. The gap between a life owned by its possessions and a life that owns them is not income. It is not a circumstance. It is a set of decisions that are available to you right now at whatever salary you currently earn, in whatever financial position you currently occupy. I'm Zik. Every item in your life is either working for you or working against you. There is no neutral possession. The inventory you keep is a choice. And so is the financial life that inventory quietly builds around you year after year without announcement. Choose deliberately. The difference between those 2 Friday evenings is made entirely of small choices compounded over time. Start making the right ones tonight. And if you are genuinely getting something from these conversations, consider subscribing. I make content like this every single week, and every video is built to give you something you can actually use before the next one arrives. See you there.